We are in there like swimwear. I first would like to say happy Rookie Reset Sunday. I am so excited for our guest today. She is back again for her insight. And just for those of you that are joining for the first time, I am Andrea Fitzgerald, and I am committed to building the efficacy of educators, teachers, just people. Hey, But the whole context of Rookie Reset Sunday, I remember Sunday night, it would be Sunday night, just like this, except I would be stressed the hell out because I could not manage my class. And quite frankly, I just couldn't figure out this teaching thing. So the whole premise of Rookie Reset Sunday is to bring people who are smashing it in the educational space to share their expertise and hopefully help you out. Because guess what? At one point, if they're in the game, they were an educator too. They were a first-year teacher. So we are literally here to provide you tools, strategies to help you thrive in that first year. And for those of you, I need you to go to mentalfitness.com/rookies right now and cop that book. It is on its way. It will be ready in about 2 weeks. But yes, today we're going to have a very, very real, candid conversation with Joy Delizo-Osborne. I said that right? Dang, yes. Yes. Joy Delizo-Osborne. She is a program manager at Student Achievement Partners, who are supposed to be they are the experts on content, math, English, all of that. Yes, they are thebomb.com, all about the IPG. That's all of them. Yes. So I'm so excited to have you today, Joy Delizo-Osborne. So just for those, if this is the first time joining, could you introduce yourself to the family? Who are you? What do you do? Let's get it. We want to hear all of it.
Sure. My name is Joy. Former English teacher, instructional coach, very briefly a principal, but the majority of my career was focused on English teaching, middle and high school. I think one of the things I'm realizing has definitely informed my worldview was that I was a women's studies and English major in college and wrote my thesis on Black feminist literature. And so I've read a lot of Black feminist literature, more than most people. And that has really shaped a lot of the way that I think about teaching English and just the way that reading is not just reading a book, it's also reading the world, right? When you read, you're really coming to understand things about yourself and other people. I got to SAP through a job at another education nonprofit out in the world. Spent a bunch of time in Memphis at the time, which is how I know you. But definitely have spent lots of time in classrooms, specifically ELA and math, working with principals, working with district leaders. And now I work on two things at SAP. One, the instructional practice guide, so tracking where it's being used and how it's being used, and our Core Advocates Network, which is our direct to educator sort of outreach effort, and have really been thinking about how we as an organization can better have our network better reflect the students and families we want to serve.
Right. Which, shout out, let me put a plug for the Core Advocates right quick, because when I tell you,
good idea,
they just took me to a whole nother level as an educator. I'm telling you, like, if you trying to get right and tight ELA and math, and you trying to be like, yo, I am a flat out expert, like, I need you to go to their website right now, and I just need you to look up SAP Core Advocates and join, because it will take you to a whole nother level and put you in rooms that you may not have been in before. I promise you, it's thebomb.com. So I need you to go do that right now.
Achievethecore.org.
Yes, achievethecore.org. Yes, you heard it. So, So this is what you do during the so you have been served in a lot of different roles in education. You have served in a lot of roles in different education. And, I really think that this conversation about race is so important, because a few weeks ago I had someone on here, and quite frankly, I don't know if I was just living in a fantasy world, but it just pissed me off. I mean, I'm freaking mad now.
What did you learn that made you so upset?
Well, it was the fact that it's systemic racism. It's in so many different layers. I mean, I was like, yo, this is so deep. The food, the transportation. I mean,
Oh,
it
yeah.
just the list could have kept going on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just so curious about this. I'm like, dang, I'm black, and I'm like, yo, how did I miss this? Like that's
No
what
one
I'm.
taught you. It
That,
wasn't in their interest. It wasn't in their best interest to make it.
yes, yes, I'm just, quite frankly, I'm just mad now, but I mean, obviously I'm learning better and learning more and really trying to explore, but I want to know, like, what kind of drew your interest, because you talk about this all the time, like, since I've known you, like, you have been very passionate about this, like, equity, race, things like that. So, like, what kind of drew you to be like to find that interest in it, and you know how you, like, really advocate for it? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. I think as a young person and as a student myself, I spent a lot of time trying to ignore race.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did not see being pro-Black, being interested in Blackness, being seen as particularly Black as being in my best interest. I've been working with a coach on this process called immunity to change, where you think about like your sort of immune system, like the way you as a person like defend yourself from the world and function.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we were talking about was that as a kid, I was just really perceptive. And one that often got me in trouble, like noticing things that I'm not supposed to notice and asking about them or
Mm-hmm.
disagreeing with them.
Right.
But two, one of the things we came to understand is that racism's function in my life has primarily been to create me or make me a manipulator, right? Like I'm always trying to think like 7 steps ahead.
Tell me
Like if
more.
this person thinks that this about me,
Uh-huh.
then I won't get this, or they will do that. So as a kid, if I'm around here talking about being Black all the time or speaking the way other folks may speak or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
the impact of that will be that I'm taken less seriously or thought of as less intelligent or given less
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. So let me scrub that out of myself as much as possible. Let me try not to talk about it. Let me just try to be one in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with the hope that somehow the outcome will be different, right? Which to a degree it has been,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
right? Like I do well for myself financially.
Mm-hmm.
I've had access to a really high quality education,
Mm-hmm.
K through 15 or whatever.
Right.
And
Right.
I have a lot of that that I owe to my family. And it has had like a toll. At some point you wake up and you're like, wow, like when am I going to stop worrying about what other people are thinking and
Mm-hmm.
actually consider what I think or what I need and then put that first. So um, and at some point, do I have enough power, prestige,
Mm-hmm.
privilege to be able to say I'm going to be myself unapologetically and expect that that does not have a super negative impact on, say, my earning potential?
Mm.
The jury is still out on that one. But all to say, like, I grew up really trying not to focus on race. And I think once I got to college and
Mm-hmm.
actually entered my first women's studies class,
Mm-hmm.
that was when I really started to feel like there was maybe something I hadn't been thinking of, like maybe there was something I was missing that could
Mm-hmm.
serve me, like feed me a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more emotionally than some of the other
Mm-hmm.
I had done and excelled at all through high school.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, right after freshman year, I fell in love with teaching. So I did the Summer Bridge program, which is
Mm-hmm.
what Breakthrough Collaborative is now. It's a national program that puts high school and college students um, as teachers for middle school students over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and teaching at Summer Bridge the summer after my freshman year was like the most transformative experience. I loved it. And that's when I decided to be a teacher. So I'm having this like awakening around like my identity at the same time, well,
Mm-hmm.
racial identity, as I am having this like professional identity moment. Like I want
Mm-hmm.
to be an educator. So the two things have really grown alongside each other, I think, over time. Yeah, it's been fun. I think, something that came up at work, we're going through this whole like equity reflection moment. And someone was like, this just seems to be taking so long. And I was like, I've been thinking about this and talking about this, at least in my personal circle, since I was 19. I'm 37. You're right. It takes a long time. This is not something that happens overnight. I think that's actually another thing that I like to remind myself of in this moment that feels so ripe, right, for change, for growth. It's not going to be overnight. For sure.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people maybe want it to be like that, be that way. Like this isn't. It feels like for me like this is something that's not really going to go away for a minute. It's been around for a minute, but I want to kind of follow up. Hold on a second, my dog is barking like crazy. Sorry, guys. Here you go. Okay, but I think one of the things that you said here was that you've been ignoring race.
I tried to.
Yes, yeah. Which I think in some ways, I think in some ways I did that too. Or it's just maybe just coming to light now. You know what I mean? Like, and just these things that I'm learning, and it's just, man, it's, yeah. But the other piece of that, it sounds like to me you said that you've kind of always thought a couple steps ahead. You know what I mean? And yeah, but you know what I'm saying, because you have to speak a certain way, you have to be a certain way, which I can definitely relate to, and you almost have to assimilate,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you have to assimilate in some ways, but it also makes me think about that video that you sent me the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the video where the guy asked, like, he said, would you rather have someone who is pedagogically strong or anti-racist teacher? Which I was like, dang, what were your thoughts on that? Because when I hear you say that, I'm like, well, dang, it's actually been some benefits to me speaking, and it's like you assimilating and being a certain way, but it's also like, just, I thought that was like a really interesting question. Like, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I thought that that question on the Citizen Ed, live or whatever was really interesting, because I think one of the nuances of the question, or at least as they posed it, was, what if this person is like really well educated in the science of reading, or the most recent advances in math, and is maybe racist, or they're racist. They have like racist ideas, or a teacher who is somehow anti-racist but less knowledgeable about how to teach effectively. And then the example was, if the teacher was sitting in a circle reading White Fragility every week, but couldn't, teacher can. And one of the things that, and they were like equating that to being woke. And one of the things that I really struggled with in that scenario, or that comparison, is that to me both of those teachers are racist. And like, if you like, I don't know why reading White Fragility would make you anti-racist.
Right. Right.
I could read Mein Kampf. I'm not a Nazi. Like, I don't know that. I think if you're anti-racist and you're a teacher and you're considering yourself an anti-racist teacher, that would mean that you would be looking at the way you were teaching and whether or not it was getting the outcomes that you expected for your students. And if you're anti-racist, the outcomes that you're expecting from your students are high, right? Like, you're expecting growth.
Right.
Sort of growth that is reflective of the genius that you think resides in the kids that are sitting in front of you. If you don't believe your kids have the potential to be genius, if you don't think that your teaching should be unearthing that genius in students in a way that you can actually measure, then you're not teaching in an anti-racist fashion.
Right. So your thoughts are that both of those teachers would be anti-racist. I mean, not anti-racist, racist, because
we all are a little bit racist, right? Like the
mm-hmm.
question is, are you acting against the racism that you find in yourself at any moment, anytime, etc. I think the teacher who is pedagogically sound, I guess I'm wondering, where are the classrooms where pedagogically sound teachers don't allow their racist ideas to impact their practice.
Hold on just a second. I'm sorry. My apologies. So you saying like, which I also see as a trend, like being aware and understanding like the ways in which you could be like racist in your classroom. So like, what do you think of some ways that I'm not gonna say as a whole yet, but if I'm a teacher, like what are some ways that I can be straight up racist and I might not even know it? Like I'm just in there teaching, like I think my hair is on fire, but I'm straight up being a racist.
What have I seen? Teachers that spend 35 of 45 minutes talking.
Tell me more. What you mean?
Like that? Well, that's the pedagogically unsound side of things, right? Like, you know, I'm in here, I'm dropping knowledge on these kids. Like, I don't know what they know. I don't know if they're keeping track of what I'm saying. I have no way of knowing if they understand what I've said, but I feel really good about myself because I've given a woke speech. This is often a history teacher, right?
Oh, okay.
That's like a history teacher mold.
Gotcha.
Or an English teacher could assign books with characters that reflect the identities of their students, but that are way below grade level in terms of complexity. But you know, they see themselves in these books. You know, it's like, well, I would like a book where they see themselves and they're being challenged. Both of those things exist. That's what I was talking about, like feminist literature for my thesis, right? Like, I think a lot of people think the only Black books out there are these high interest, low level books that textbook companies often put out, or like those bundles of books that are like all about the same 3 stereotypes of kids, but you know, there's a boy with cornrows or something on the cover. Those books are not bad. I personally love some of those books. Like I have I'm blanking on the name right now. There's this whole trio of books about this high school. Like some of them are great. And if that's all you expect kids to be able to, or be able to be engaged in reading, that's problematic. On the other hand, you are pedagogically sound, you know about the science of reading, et cetera, but maybe you have a diverse classroom. Maybe you're in one of these suburbs, or even sometimes the urban core, where, you know, lots of different kinds of kids in the room, and you're Black or Latinx boys somehow never make it through the lesson. So you're teaching in a pedagogically sound way, but 3 brown people end up in the hallway for 20 minutes out of those 45 minutes, or in the dean's office, or in the principal's office, or put in the back on timeout, or pulled back from lunch to sit silently with you, or whatever that looks like. Your teaching is sound, but who's receiving the teaching?
So,
or, you know, kids are checked out. You're saying the right things, but are they actually invested in you and what you have to say? You're still not doing your job.
Wow. So okay. So a couple things. So let me run that back to make sure I'm in the car because I do have some questions about the. Okay. So maybe I put quote unquote black text in front of them, but it's low as hell. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's racist.
Mm-hmm.
If
I
I'm
mean, unless they're in third grade or something. I mean, I don't know, but nah. If you're
okay.
in 10th grade reading stuff that's at a 4th grade level, yeah, not okay.
Got you. And I also had a question about the. Okay, I'm giving the woke speech. Like, what does that look like? Like, what is it? What is the woke speech? I'm talking the whole time. Like, give me an example. Like, what could that look like?
I
I'm
don't
up at
know
the
how to
screen.
explain it. I've seen it so many times as like an instructional coach. It doesn't even have to be a woke speech. A woke speech was like the best version.
Okay, give
Literally,
me
I
an example.
saw someone spend 20 minutes throwing markers at kids, like to hand them out. He was doing a performance. He did
What?
marker,
Uh huh.
marker up over his head, marker behind his back, marker
Uh
here.
huh. Right.
I'm literally timing on my phone.
Mhm.
How long does it take us to actually do something in this class today?
Mhm.
18 minutes of just set. This is high school. This is 10th graders.
Oh no, they only have 50 minutes. So check this out. Oh my gosh. Hold on a second. I'm about to take this dog out because she want to talk to. Because she want to talk to. Y'all, give me a second. I gotta take my dog out.
Okay.
She gonna keep on. She gonna keep on barking. The bed. Okay, I think we good now. She will get up. So wait a minute. So apologize, guys. Yes, she wants to talk to. Okay, so check this out. So I'm spending 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. I'm just, out there razzle dazzling. To me, that's like the instructional framework. You know how the first part of the lesson is like,
Yeah.
that's like the top bun of the bread. Baby, you done gave them a thick old piece of bread for the whole, you never got to the meat of the
I
lesson.
mean,
Like,
is that bread or is that the butter on the bread or is that the sprinkle, the sesame seeds? Like, I'm not sure, but I've seen it a million times. And these people feel like, and maybe because they haven't had feedback or anyone really
mm-hmm,
come to see them before and kids like them, right?
mm-hmm,
That kids liking you is a good indicator alone of whether or not what's happening in your classroom is high quality. And I think that
mm-hmm,
anytime I put, so the citizen ed conversation, like I feel like there's a lot that resonated as being really positive for me.
mm-hmm,
I just felt like they were discussing a question that in itself didn't really make much sense, right? Like
mm-hmm,
our standards need to be higher than you know what you're doing, and maybe you do it badly, but at least my kid, because I raised them well or something, will get
mm-hmm,
it, or you don't know what you're doing.
mm-hmm.
Like those can't be our only option. There has to be an option where people know what they're doing and they're doing it well and trying to reach every student and holding
Mm-hmm,
themselves accountable for reaching every student in a way that they can actually measure
mm-hmm,
results, outcomes in terms of that kid's growth. And it doesn't have to be, in my
mm-hmm,
mind, this is me personally, not me as an SAP representative in any way.
mm-hmm,
It doesn't necessarily have to be a year of growth on
mm-hmm,
these standardized tests that someone has written,
mm-hmm.
right? But I do think the shifts are a really good way of understanding whether or not instruction in a classroom is consistently
Mm-hmm.
focused on the right things, the right kinds of skills, the right kinds of ways of thinking that
Mm-hmm.
support us all. When I think about my independent school education, my private school education in middle and high school,
Mm-hmm.
I think the shifts reflect the kind of learning that I did then that really has served me well
Mm-hmm.
ever since, you know. So
Right, right.
yeah.
So having that low bar is that like the bar low is that's like racist. I mean, that's racist behavior in
In
some
my
ways
mind, yeah.
because of the like the expectations. Um but it also sounds like, from what you said, like if I'm pedagogically sound and I'm just teaching to the quote unquote top, or like
Or the lighter
black,
skinned folk in the room, or
right,
the
right.
ones who will stop talking quickly and easily, or
Mhm.
the ones that have no trouble staying awake,
Mhm.
or whatever,
Mhm.
whatever that teacher's challenge is.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Which
that's
I've seen.
problematic too.
Yeah, which I've seen that before. And I think before, like I think I was too afraid to call it out, but
Oh yeah.
it felt very racist in a sense, because I noticed that a black male could do something completely different, and like a white student would do the same thing, and it was like, oh, they're being aggressive, they're being this, they're being that, when
Hmm.
it was just like, no,
Absolutely.
actually they're just being themselves. And so like I know, like I'd be thinking like, man, if I wouldn't be offended by that,
Yeah.
like if I was in a class, like I would not be offended, because what I'm saying, I understand, culture a little bit, but I've definitely seen that and been like, yo, like that's not cool, or
Yeah.
even like you talked about, just allowing, holding low expectations. I've definitely seen that too. Like, it's one of the schools that I served like many, many years ago, and it was um, predominantly white, and it had a shift in the students that they served, because it
Hmm.
used to be like that, and then it was like, oh no, and they had the hardest time working with, with black and brown students. And
Yeah.
like you couldn't call it out, but you knew what it was.
Yes.
Like that was the challenge. Like I don't know how to work with this group of students, so I definitely seen that before.
I think the
Totally.
other thing
Mhm.
that I struggle with is when white folks, or any folks honestly,
Mhm.
become very visibly or um, sort of loudly woke. I
Mhm.
feel like they often end up centering themselves. So the example about like this person reading White Fragility, like that's about you.
Mhm.
What does that have to do with your children? Like I don't like
Mhm.
yeah, like you reading White Fragility with other teachers, like maybe useful, but like wouldn't you actually want to learn how to better teach your students? I guess I think that journey for people of becoming woke becomes, they feel like praiseworthy in itself, when really valuing the lives of other people
Mhm.
should be like a basic human sort of requirement, right?
Mhm.
So if you're getting only now sort of starting a little bit to get to a place where kind of sort of maybe you could see somebody else's perspective or hear
Mhm.
from them when you've hurt them,
Mhm.
uh, I would see that as a humbling moment, not a moment to be proud about and or trumpet. And so I think one of the things we've been talking about at our job is like, a white person doesn't get to name them as selves as anti-racist. Like a
Mm.
person of color or some oppressed person, right, should be the one that helps you know that something you're doing
Mm.
is better honoring their existence, supporting them, and
Mm.
um, building them up in the world. And then you can take from that cue that maybe your actions, maybe your existence in the world is approaching an anti-racist one.
Mhm.
But to say I read 3 books, I'm
Wow.
anti-racist now. Like when did you? How can you be the judge of that?
Mhm.
Again, who are we actually worried about? Are we
Mm.
worried about you, or are we worried about the people who have been denied equal treatment,
Mhm.
um, and many times their lives for generations in this country? Um,
Mhm.
I
That's
just I don't think white folks need to be at the center of that
that's
conversation.
real. That's real deep. That's real deep. One of my colleagues said that the other day, like a few weeks ago. She was like, we got to go beyond like the book clubs, you know, like what are we actually going to do? So if I'm, you know, if I'm a white person, or if I'm a person period teaching Black and brown kids, what do you think, like, moving, you know, you almost want to title this conversation moving beyond the book club or something. Like, if I'm moving beyond the book club and I'm really making like anti-racist like things to help myself and better be able to serve my students, like what do you think are some things that I could do to get that thing going? You know what I'm saying? Because it does move beyond a book. I mean, shoot, I've read a ton of books, but and a lot of things, but until I actually went out there and did it, it didn't make no sense to me, you know? So
Yeah.
what do you think?
I am someone who is like constantly self-critical. So I think my personal approach is maybe different than others. Some of the things I've seen though, one of my very dear white friends, I do have many white friends, and one of my dear friends recently was like, you know, I think I'm gonna stop talking to you guys about this. So it's like there's a group of us on a chat, and there's 3 Black women and a white woman, and she's like, I feel like I need to stop bringing my race stuff to you guys. And we're like, what do you mean? Like I feel like I'm expecting your emotional labor for something that I need to do for myself, and I shouldn't be looking for your validation. She's like, honestly, I come here to feel good about the fact that I've done the thing that I say I did. She's like, I need to stop looking to you all to give me like a high five every time I do something. If I call you my friends, I need to find someplace else to work through this stuff. And she has 100%, like, we don't hear about that. And we talk about recipes, we talk about TV. She joined a Standing Up for Racial Justice surge group in New York, where she is, and she talks to other white people and figures out how the things she has done or hasn't done will make her feel. There's no more looking to us to like measure that. And I think that's something that feels important to me for school settings as well, is not looking to the few Black folks on staff or looking to kids even, or families, to validate something that you feel like you've done that's so great. Like, that is work for you to do, honestly, for you. Like, for you to know yourself, to be the best person you possibly can be, you need to do that work. So that's one. Two, I think really, we worked at SAP with this org, Equity Meets Design, run by some really amazing people. Really changed my life recently. That immunity to change work is through them. But one of the things they always focus on is the idea that a system works exactly as it's designed to, right? So the outcomes that you're getting are the outcomes the system was designed to provide.
Right.
So when you're thinking about redesigning, one of the things you have to do is focus on the people most proximate to the problem, right? So the people that are closest to the outcome that you want to change, which in schools is students. And I think one of the questions and things we have a lot of trouble doing is actually centering students and our decision making by actually listening to them.
That's deep.
I mean, I struggled with this deeply as a teacher, you know.
Guilty.
Truly listening to kids and taking what they say seriously, even if it doesn't confirm what I think, what I believe about myself, is deeply humbling. When you times that from kids to parents, and you want a school or a district to sit and really take in what they're saying, the impact of the decisions we make is on them, and then use that to guide the redesign of the system, like, that's major work. You know, at SAP we talk about the major work of the grade. That is the major work of the world. And I don't know that we're ready for that, but if we really wanted to change something, I think that is where we would have to start, is really taking the PPP, the people most proximate to the problem, seriously.
I love that. So let me, I want to just, these two things. Okay. So the first thing you said that, you know, instead of like, oh, seeking validation for, oh, I did this amazing thing, you said do that, like do that work individually. But also, do you think that it's a benefit for like white people to be educated on the black experience? You know what I'm saying? Because
Yes.
I think that
There are many books,
Mhm.
blogs, Instagrams. There's a lot of things. Like
uh
I myself on the Black experience, because guess what? I've only had one. Like,
mhm.
yes, I think it's absolutely important. Get your book club going. Maybe stop reading white people telling you how to be better anti-racist. Maybe just go learn something about
Mhm.
Black people from the mouths of Black people. And I mean, read wide, read far, read poetry, read poems.
Mhm.
Wait, poetry and poems, same thing.
Yeah,
Poetry and plays is what I meant.
right, right.
Um, watch videos,
Mhm.
watch YouTube series, read
Mhm.
memoirs, and read the like heavy hitting nonfiction books. I personally really struggle with nonfiction. Like I really struggle with holding my attention through like 400 pages of information. I am a literature reader.
Got you.
I read everything I can get my hands on. I mean, that was me as a kid. It's
Mhm.
still me as an adult. I swear to God. I mean, my wife is always very unhappy. I probably have 600 books or something on these bookshelves. And then in my phone, in my books app, in my Nooks app, I probably have another 400.
Dang.
I read a lot.
I
And I don't
see.
always remember everything I read. It's not like I'm an
Mhm.
encyclopedia.
Right.
But again, and I said this on a call with one of my ex students. She called me and asked me about education. And I was
Mhm.
like, I literally like the Reading Rainbow theme song,
Mhm.
Butterfly in the Sky. I can go twice. Take a look. It's in a book. It's reading. Like, take a look. It's in a book. No joke. As a kid, we didn't go many places, right? There's a lot of
Mhm.
kids, very expensive to travel. Every place we went
Mhm.
to drive.
Right.
Everywhere I went, it was in a book. And
Mhm.
books don't steer me wrong. Haven't
Mhm.
steered me wrong yet. I'm reading
Mhm.
right now. Keith Layman,
Mhm.
a memoir set in the
Mhm.
Deep South.
Right.
Blowing my mind. Not
Right.
my Black experience. Very
Mhm.
different Black experience than my own.
Mhm.
And I'm learning from it, you know?
Mhm.
And I think as a Black person who spent a lot of time, I said this to a coworker this week, studying whiteness as a kid as a way to learn how to assimilate effectively.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think I really underestimated how separated from the Black and brown experience many white people are. Like I just never really realized like they don't study us. You know, the all the time I spend watching to figure out what I can do to get ahead,
Mhm.
like they don't spend that time. Like they aren't looking other places. I mean, maybe at MTV, you know,
Mhm.
memorizing rap lyrics. Like I don't have many lyrics.
Mhm.
Nope. My whole brain space was, you know, spent trying not to say axe, but say ask instead. You
Mhm.
know, like I feel like I spent so much time
Trying to
trying
be
to
a certain way.
control what I couldn't control.
Yeah.
Um, that you know, I think it's just a really interesting thing when you grow up as a Black person in the United States and realize, you know, these folks really have no idea.
Yeah.
And all they get is talking heads on the television
Mhm.
and like no real lived experience. Then
Mhm.
like are we really surprised why they show up in our neighborhoods to teach fully ignorant, you know?
Mm.
I'm not
Wow.
surprised, and I think it's still a problem. Like I understand why,
Mhm.
and yet we need to do better if we actually want to see the outcomes we say we want to see. And I think that's a big if. We
Mm.
really want to see the achievement gap, the opportunity gap, the
Right.
differences in performances on whatever kind of tests you want to, you know, put out there.
Mm. Mhm.
Shrink. One, the tests probably need to change and be less biased in themselves. But two,
Mm.
we have to stop expecting people who don't really know anything about their students, cultures, experiences,
Mhm.
etc.,
Mhm.
um, to be the most effective at doing that. And I mean, the
Mm.
reality is, what is our teaching workforce is something like 87% white or something like that.
Is it?
Some really high number nationally.
Oh.
You know, I don't think those people are bad people. And that's the other thing I would not want anyone to think. I don't think that racist
Mhm.
equals bad
Mhm.
necessarily, right? There's
Mhm.
like many different realities we live every day.
Right.
I could be generous and a bully and
Mhm.
very sensitive all at the same time or something. Like all these things that kind of contradict each other can be true about the same person. I can love my students and be racist. Like I can
Mhm.
legitimately love my students. I can spend money on my students and be racist. I can
Mhm.
get there early and leave late every day and be racist. There's all sorts of things I can be. And if I'm
Mhm.
not racist, because I've really been working at that, I could still be homophobic. I could still be
Mm.
ableist. Like there are lots of different things. One of the things I've been working on, to be transparent, is pronouns.
Mhm.
I am not. I have not
Mhm.
been good about honoring folks' pronouns always.
Mhm. Right.
Something that I'm like also like kind of baffled by. Like I
Mhm.
know intellectually I fully intend to be,
Mhm.
and somehow in lived practice I'm not. So that's a contradiction that I have to
Mhm.
deal with and take ownership of. When I
Right.
mess up, I have to own that.
Right.
For folks who are wondering, like, well, how do I ever get better at this racism? Like
Mhm.
there's a contradiction.
Mhm.
Intellectually, you want to, and practice, you aren't.
Mhm.
You got to own that
Yeah. Yeah.
every time you see it, and eventually you'll get better.
Mhm.
But every time you dismiss it, you're not helping.
Mhm. Right. So so personal responsibility, I think it sounds like is huge.
It's one of your
And
favorite phrases.
yes, it is, yeah, taking ownership. Yeah, it's a big deal. But
Yeah.
this idea of assimilation though, that is just, I don't know. I just find I think that in some ways, like I I just feel like it's new for me, but because it's always been normal to do it, you know? Like when people there's some people at my job that talked about it, and I was like, dang, like I didn't even think about this. Like this is not even normal that I'm thinking about how I speak, how I talk, how I present myself, what I wear. Like it's just, I mean, just things that you think about that you don't, you don't think of as like as being like racist in some ways, you know what I'm saying? But it also
Mhm.
sounds like um like we really um have to like ask the source almost, are we I mean, shoot, if we want to talk about black and brown, serving black and brown kids, then we should be asking them and really just bringing those perspectives, because kind of like you said, it's like we're making all these decisions, but if we want to know more about it, we need to ask their like those people's perspectives,
Yeah.
black and brown
And I
people.
think,
Hmm.
yeah, I think, we've given our perspective. To your point earlier,
Hmm.
I mean, it feels like it's like Groundhog Day, like we're kind of having the same conversation
Hmm.
over and over and over and over and over and over again. My
Hmm.
mother says, there's nothing new under the sun. I'm sure other
Hmm.
mothers say that too.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
there is nothing new under the sun. It turns out she's right.
Hmm.
You're welcome, Ma, when you see this. Um, and so it's not that no one has ever heard from
Hmm.
Black and brown folks. Like it's just, when this is the other thing I've
Hmm.
seen over and over again, and it's so true. You
Hmm.
know, but folks in power don't concede that power without demand, right? Like truly, who does a gap serve? Achievement gap, opportunity gap. More so than it underserves folks of color, who does it actually serve?
It's white people, right?
People in power. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, there are probably like individuals, right? But systemically, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when white folks say, well, I want to be anti-racist, I mean, at some point, that actually means I'm willing to give up my power. I'm willing to give up some of the positive that I've received, right? And so, like, so much online, you know, there's this woman on Instagram, She Rose, who constantly talks about white folks paying reparations. So she posts GoFundMe's of Black folks who need help. It's like mothers escaping a domestic violence situation, or a student who needs money for books or whatever. And she promotes those GoFundMe's and really challenges white folks to pay reparations. Right? Like, if you're saying you're anti-racist and you understand the way these systems have worked to get Black folks sort of unfairly in this position, often of more poverty, less access to high quality education, all of this, then what are you going to do to like actively, materially counteract that? I've heard at organizations, folks thinking about like, what kind of power am I willing to give up? If I hold the reins over these three pieces of what we do as an organization, what am I willing to let go of and give to other folks in the org? And that might not just be Black and brown folks. That might be folks with lower power in the organization having more of a voice. Right. That might be changing the decision-making process so that it's more about a democratic or like consensus building process, like whatever that looks like. But legitimately, if you actually want to change something material has to change hands. And I think that's hard for folks. I know it would be hard for me.
Yeah.
Right? If I was like, hey, Ligaya, baby, like you get to decide what you eat at all meals. Like, nah, nope, I'm the mother. You know, like. Right. Right. I don't care if you want salmon every day. Like, I don't have it like that. Right. Like that. There is like an inherent challenge in that, which is why it's so hard to change anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, man, it's been a minute since it's been like it's kind of, I don't want to say always. Yeah, it's always been like this, like it has
since the United States was born.
Yeah,
definitely since then.
Yeah. So it's like, man, it just seems like it's a lot. It just seems like it's so much. So if I'm a person,
I feel like you're like deep in your own like emotional quagmire right now. You're like,
man, I swear, every time, like when I talked to Malone a few weeks ago, I was like, damn. And now I'm like, damn again. Like this thing run deep, man. It's just, woo, it's a lot. So like, what do you think? Okay, so because this is for new teachers. So if you in the classroom and like, what are like 2 to 3 things that I could do to be anti-racist and, at least, what I'm saying, for me to show up, because it sounds like it's so deep. Because I even feel like, I was like, man, in some ways, when you were talking about the Black people, I was like, yo, I was a racist too, man. Because my experience as a Black person was so different growing up than it was the students I served, man. Like that joint it was like night and day. And I was like, yo, they don't care. They don't want to do it. But I was just like straight up, I was like, I didn't believe they could do it. You know what I mean? When I first came. So because my experience was so different, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, they just need to work hard. They just need to, but I'm like, now I'm like, and what I started to see as a teacher was like, oh, actually, this thing wasn't set up like we playing chess, but they didn't already took all the all the pieces off the board.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, what are like 2 to 3 things that if I'm a new teacher, I'm fresh in the game, and this race thing is big? Because I even saw a post the other day. She was like, "Man, I'm so nervous. Like, I didn't even know what Juneteenth was. Like, oh my gosh, like, how can I be more like culturally aware and also like be anti-racist in the class?" Because I mean, that's gonna be pretty big. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I really like this book. This is Retta Hammond book, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. I know everyone talks about it.
Shout out! I think Malone she introduced that thing too. Yep.
Everyone like brings it up. Oh, yeah, he reads Retta Hammond. I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, I don't like nonfiction books. This book has really like grown my brain
Right.
over the last few months.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's a really accessible intro text.
Mm-hmm.
Another book I've really enjoyed, We Want to Do More Than Survive by Bettina Love. Great. I think following good people, not good people, following people that talk about the things that you want to get better at online, right? So I know everyone has like, all the Black folks on IG been like, wow, have so many new followers. Like, what's good? But I agree, like, follow folks because, you know, what we read, like we read the world, right? Like what we read actually informs our worldview. And so you want to change your world.
I can go.
Where's the bar when you need them? But seriously, I think what you read really does inform your worldview. And it doesn't have to be a 500-page book every time. It could be a post that really blows your mind. And you don't have to repost it. You don't have to put it in your story. You could just save that thing for yourself and like go back, you know? I also think having a la my white friend, right? Like a place to go, whether it's an accountability partner or a coach that you really trust to, who you can state your intentions to, right? Like when I come to you with something that I'm not sure about how I did or what I should have done, I don't want you to coddle me. I don't want you to tell me it's okay or that I did my best. I want you to actually try to find the places I could have done better.
So challenge
Ask
me.
for that,
yes.
And then expect it from them because that's what you need.
Got
all of us need that is people who are courageous enough to call us out. And
yes, agreed.
You know, it's hard to sit there. And that's the thing everyone at my org made like a personal commitment around our equity pause. And one of the things I committed to was more face burning moments. I was saying, you know, people can't tell when I blush. It's not the way my skin tone works. But when I blush, you know, my face burns and I know I'm blushing, right? And like I avoid those moments instinctively. I need to step into more moments where I can be called out. I can be asked to fix it. I can be told I was wrong. And to like just sit in that feeling and get used to it so that it doesn't feel so scary. I also think listening to kids is paramount. I talked about that last time. But, you know, my issue with Maurice. Like actually sitting with Maurice and letting him be like, you know what, you always think you're right. Like, and not being like, why is your neck rolling? Letting his neck roll and hearing what he actually had to say. You know? Because it's so easy to focus on the things that you feel like you can point out as wrong in the moment to like keep yourself from really being in the spotlight.
Yeah.
I think those are a good 3 things to start with. I don't think there's anything perfect.
You actually gave me 4, which I want to make sure I got this. I need y'all to hear this for the people. I want to make sure I got all of them. So one of the things you had books. Like, so books, the Retta Hammond book, which I feel like I need to purchase that thing. I started listening to the Pedagogy of the Press. Yes.
Pedagogy of the Press is great too.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's good too.
What's that book called? Culturally Responsive Brain?
Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain.
Okay. That Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain. so getting books, and we want to do more. Okay, we want to do more than survive. Yeah, check that out. Check that out.
And she had a
Secondly,
really great YouTube recently too.
okay, good deal. Good deal. Secondly, follow people. So whether it's IG, Facebook, the world is our oyster. And then the third thing. Well, let's talk about the books one more time. What's the reading? I can
Oh
go
yeah.
anywhere.
Take a look. It's in a book.
Yeah, there you go. Take a look
That's
at a
my
book.
favorite.
That's gonna be the title right there. Take a look. It's in a book. All right, girl. And then also a place to go. Okay, a place to go. So accountability. So have somebody would say face burning moments. I love that. That was good. That was like, put me in the fire, baby. And
Yeah.
then yes, I love that accountability. And then what you said right there, like being willing to be called out, which I think
Mhm.
can, sometimes we want to mask that thing, like, man, nah, I'm about to cover this thing. But being willing to be called, and then listening to children. Listen to
Mhm.
children. So we're about to close this thing out. It's 8:03, and I want to be, cognizant of your time as well, respectful of your time. So if there was like one key takeaway in terms around race that you want our listeners to walk away from the conversation that we had today, what would you say, Joy and Payne? I mean, Joy. We talked about so much, but is there
Joy
anything like
Delizo-Osborne.
Joy Delizo? I almost called you Joy and Payne. My bad. That's like my
No,
nickname
that's
for
fine.
her. Yes,
That's
Joy and Payne.
fine.
But yes, now what you got? What you got? So one key takeaway, like you want people to walk away from the conversation that we having today.
Woke is not a performance art. Wokeness is not a performance art. I think so much of the work that we do as Black and Brown folks dealing with racist behaviors that we have, as white folks upholding this system of white supremacy that benefits some of us more than others unfairly. I think we just have to recognize that wokeness is it's a solitary experience in a lot of ways, and you're not going to get a lot of praise or recognition. The primary benefit you're going to get is hopefully better outcomes as a teacher, right? That in doing the work, you will better serve students and they will perform better as a result. That might have to be the thing you take away, right? Because there are no one should have to give you a pat on the back. So when a Black colleague or parent still calls you out, even though you're trying your best, you got to sit with that and be okay with it and think, wow, what is this in comparison to 400 years of oppression?
Woo.
Not much.
That's a gem right there. That's a gem. That's a gem. That's deep right there. So, that's real deep. I gotta let that thing breathe for a little bit. I gotta let that thing breathe, because look what you just said was so powerful. It's like, I might be having a moment. I might be taking it personal when I get some feedback around like my racist behavior or something I've done, maybe unintentionally, which I think, can happen. Obviously, it's been, like I said, 400 years, but
unconscious bias, implicit bias, it's all, all of it's there. Yep.
All of that, but it's nothing in comparison to 400 years of oppression, which is deep as hell. That's deep. That's real deep. Yes. So I'm loving that. So and
we all know kids are gonna have that's gonna be every kid's favorite thing to say this year. Less racist. Am I George Floyd up in this? Like kids are gonna say these things. You have to be okay.
Yeah.
With hearing that and moving forward.
Yes. Yeah.
Figure out what the real problem is and addressing it.
Yeah.
And they know what's up.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much, Joy. I want to say it so bad. So grateful for you, Joy, to join us today and just bring your expertise, your thoughts, your insights, to hopefully help a new teacher. So y'all heard, go look. It's in a book. Reading Rainbow 100 right here, 2.0. So if people want to connect with you, Joy, they want to learn more just about you and what you're doing, where could they find you at?
Yeah, I don't have much of an online presence. So I have an Instagram that is mostly my dogs and my daughter, and then I have a Facebook that is hidden from most people. So what I will say is check out achievethecore.org. SAP, great place to go. And, if you really want my contact info, you can find me on Facebook.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I'm so glad that you took the time out of your busy schedule to join us today, and we will see you guys next week. Next week, and for all of you guys, I need you to go to mentalfitness.com/rookies and cop that book, The Rookies Playbook for New Teachers. And we are out. We'll see y'all next week. Hold on, let me stop this live. All right, hold on. Let me cut that recording off too.